Welcome to Audio Branding, the hidden gem of marketing. Sound plays a more important role in human behavior and our decision-making than you may realize. In this podcast, I'll help you understand the art and science of sound so you can better influence others in business and your life. I'm your host, Jodi Krangle. Let's delve a little deeper. Welcome. It's good to see you. It's been a while.
Good to see you too. I'm doing well. Yeah. I'm glad we got around to it, you know?
Very much so. I've been looking forward to this.
Likewise.
So, just to start us off, do you have an early memory of how sound moved you?
An early memory of how sound moved me. That's a great question. I feel like when we last spoke, I probably had, a great anecdote prepared for it.
Well, something early on that got you interested in what you're doing now. I mean, because clearly sound is a thing for you.
Sure.
So.
Yeah. I mean, I think I always there was definitely times, especially in film soundtracks where that was music especially was where things really got heightened and I would attach to something and I enjoyed listening to film soundtracks and stuff. But I think the earliest memory that I can attach to having an audio or music influence is just when the iPod video came out, and I know that's not super early, but for me, I was in high school and it was just the coolest thing. And I got it and I didn't listen to much, a ton of music then, but I had this iPod and I was like, well, I have to justify it. And so then I just started listening to music like crazy and, exchanging CDs, friends would burn me CDs and give them to me at school. And then and so quickly my iPod, I filled it with music and that was definitely probably I would say the catalyst for me becoming interested in music and audio. And I was always a video person and then somehow just, by love of music ended up working in it. And so it's, that's what I guess I would say is the best answer.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, audio tech is another aspect of things that a lot of people don't really pay all that much attention to, right? It works. That's all I need to know. So what got you interested in the internal workings of all this?
Yeah. Or just in the audio industry in general
Sure.
I'll clarify. I'm, currently I'm the marketing director at Mackie and, again, I was always a video person. I liked filmmaking and storytelling and that, and in those most traditional respects. And even it's kind of I have to laugh because I've learned that just through my education and in my professional career, audio always follows video. The trends develop just quicker in video. And it's even true of the reason why I got an iPod was because you could put videos on it now. And
do you know why that happens though? Do you have a theory?
I don't know. I mean, I think it's just more I just think something being a visual aspect has a little more instant gratification, and something that we maybe take for granted, is audio because that's for what it's worth. Audio has a lot of value and there's a shorthand with audio memes and stuff right
Sure.
now. But yeah, I don't know. It's just always been that way that, that's what really leads. Phones have really nice cameras and DSLR cameras, all that technology, always kind of informs what will follow. And so, yeah, I don't know. It's just audio is sometimes to people sort of less accessible or just requires a little more understanding, I guess. So,
slightly more effort.
Yeah. And so, that's maybe just the long,
Lots of payoff, though.
Right. And I think when something does have good audio, and what's weird about this is that it's been shown that if something has bad audio, people have less like tolerance for that. And so like people will watch, like in our case, like if the video is like, not where you want it to be, like, well, that component isn't as important. But if the audio is not there, people's attention spans just drop. And so it is it is sort of like this oxymoron of like, there is like more and less value. Like it's like held to a higher standard, but people don't, it's just kind of weird. I don't know how to explain it, but I'm sure there's some researcher who toils over it.
Yeah, psychology. I'm sure there is. So what were your influences in this whole thing? Like what got you to Mackie?
So, the thing that I think where you can draw like the clearest line is when I went to school for video production, there was a student run radio station. And I just always thought it would be cool to have a radio show. Like I liked listening to talk radio, and I did that. And that, is where I just kind of, because it was student run, there wasn't any like rules. You could just make whatever you wanted from it. And so I like, very quickly just did whatever I wanted to do on that show. And if it was comics or movies or video games or whatever, like it was just my outlet for things I liked. And I learned at the time the value of a platform, because this was like 2009. So people weren't like Instagram influencers or even like YouTube stars, right? This was still like pretty premature in like my show was live streamed technically, but this was way before Twitch was like what it is. And so for me, it was like this platform that I could call, if I saw a band was coming through town, I would be like, hey, I have a radio show. No other qualification, right? But it was just like this open door. And that was where I just really started networking and putting myself out there. And like, that is probably the biggest influence in terms of me doing something professionally audio related. And I used that for whatever it was worth to get into Mackie. And, like I knew the name Mackie being, we had VLZ boards in our production trucks, and like I knew it was synonymous with audio. I just wasn't the core user. But yeah. And once I actually found the brand, like having moved out here, I realized it was like just, very unique and like me, like free spirit in these ways that Mackie isn't like too defined or too corporate. And I love it for that, because I never ever painted myself into any kind of wall and stuff. And so I love that I have that flexibility in my career too.
Yeah. So is that what's changed then between what you thought the perception of Mackie was before you joined them and now that you're a part of the organization? Like what has changed between what you think people know about Mackie and what you now know?
That's a good question. I mean, at the time, I think that was like, so I started as the digital marketing manager at the brand, and I had done a lot of production work in a lot of capacities. I even was considering when I owned a small video production company, and my options were like, okay, take out a big loan and invest in equipment and make this into a studio space, where I was looking at podcasting equipment. I had a room that would have been great for a podcasting room. And I was either going to do that.
Okay.
Or I was going to move to Seattle and look for a corporate job. And I did that, and I guess it worked out. But, I had this, when I was interviewing, I had this shopping list of like all of our competitor brands. And I was just like, even like I DJ'd weddings, and I was just like, hey, like, I was like, here's the question I want to solve. I was like, why isn't there any, I was well positioned to be a Mackie customer, and there's tons of choices. And, even my dad, like, he knows the brand, but there's, I think there's just like, there was a need to modernize our approach. And that was what I came in to do. I was a video producer. I knew content is king, and that's like some of the stuff I brought with me to be like, hey, like let's, everyone says, hey, we're the people who smash gear. I'm like, let's go outside and smash some gear. And like, sure enough, that stuff was like ripe for TikTok. And like, we were like a viral brand before that ever became a thing. Right. We have
that's cool.
every right to be like the Wendy's Twitter of pro audio, but
so the black sheep.
Totally. And like, and that's like the thing I love is like, I worked at Black Squirrel Radio, but I always called it the black sheep of student media because it had like the least like acknowledgement and like the least money from, the university. But it was like, that's what I love about, like, it just reminds me of that because Mackie was just always like this challenger brand that, redefined what could happen. And so, yeah, I don't know. I just felt like I fit in despite that.
That's good. Yeah, that's really awesome. So being at Mackie, then I think previously when we had our little chat before this, we were talking about a mission and whether or not you had a mission or if Mackie had a mission and something about, challenging the norms and that kind of thing, which you kind of love about the black sheep idea, the mentality there. Do you have a personal mission as far as what you hope to accomplish with what you're doing?
On a personal level, like I've started to just try and embrace being the person again that we like the customer, cause like I always was the customer and like for, through the last few years, I just really focused on the job, but now we have, these products like for live streaming and podcasting, like, and, getting out of just our traditional live sound recording, but like creator specific. And I would, just in the time since you and I last spoke, we had a short introduction call. Yeah, I started live streaming on Twitch and just getting back into that habit and like just doing it for fun, right? Not doing it for my job. Like I guess I could do it on the official Mackie accounts, but I just want to do it for fun and not feel like it's work. And
experiment with it.
Yeah. And the thing is like for a long time, I really thought like I overthought about like, how should I market myself? Like, should I do this? And I was like, I'm just going to do what I want that day. Cause that's what I did 10 years ago and it worked for me, So and so that's like really been very liberating.
Is it using the DLZ that you're doing this?
Yeah, I'm trying to get that. I just like bought a new computer and last night I was having trouble with my capture card, but it's just a lot of work to reconfigure everything. And so, but yeah, the DLZ was definitely what inspired me. And so just for quick context is like, even, Sean, who's helping, he mentioned he has a Pro FX mixer and like, so for the last 35 years, Mackie has been, this mixer brand that, made like the first quality, affordable mixer that like any kind of aspiring gigging person could have. And like, that's always been our field. And those products were like, they're very ubiquitous and they're just seen and used everywhere. And, but now we live in this day and age where there's purpose built devices. And so we made the DLZ Creator, a purpose built podcasting solution. And that for me, just going back to my roots again, selfishly, like when I left the institution of, a university, I just thought, okay, this is a part of myself that I'll never get back again. And now we have this board that does everything our $50,000 plus studio had. And it's something that is sitting on my desk. And I'm just like, well, if there's anyone who has any right to use this thing, I was like, I guess it should be the guy who helped launch it, And,
I guess so. Yeah.
Right.
Why
I was
not?
like, if everyone else gets to have fun, why shouldn't I, So,
Why not?
yeah, and that's been, we've been seeing, a lot of interest and a lot of great adoption for it. And it's just, I'm just so thankful to be part of something that people are enthusiastic about, and people have been like, this is going to change the way I do things. And I'm like, that's like the greatest compliment anyone could ever ask for,
Wonderful. Yeah. So your mission and Mackie's mission kind of are in alignment
I think,
right now.
I think
thing.
my mission is aligned with, what serves that, because I don't know, I just love doing it. Like, some people will be like, yeah, don't make your job your life. But I'm like, but I love my job because it's like what I want to do, And so,
Sure.
I guess that's a good thing, good problem to have, right?
Definitely. So can you talk a little bit about what the DLZ does? Because, you've talked
Yeah.
about what it is, I guess, but if someone isn't familiar with it, I'm just curious as to like what kind of problems it solves.
Absolutely. Thank you. Yeah. So we market it as, an adaptive digital mixer for podcasting and live streaming. So it's a digital mixer like any other, and it's fully capable.
Mm-hmm.
Like the traditional, mixer that Mackie would have made is like, just all of your routing needs for getting audio here to there and getting EQ and compression and making things sound good. And, it's for some kind of hard to wrap your brain around. And what we did with this product was we're trying to give people the benefit of using a mixer without necessarily having to be like the audio professional who went to school. Like I hear all the time, anytime I meet someone, they're like, oh, the first board I ever used was a Mackie. And like, we all learned on it. We had them in my classrooms, but like now that podcasting is, for many people, like it's not just like a profession, like it's a hobby. And so, it's just about getting the benefit to the user, as quickly as possible. So we have these control modes in the DLZ Creator. There's easy, enhanced, and professional. And so someone who is a professional and wants all of the benefit of total control and customization, all the fun stuff is in there, but the easy workflow is like a top level preset based workflow. There's also, what we call mix agent technology. And, it's kind of like your personal audio engineer. So when you first turn on the mixer, there's a setup assistant, there's input detection. It'll detect this is a microphone. You can choose what kind of microphone it is. It will listen to you and it'll set. I did it last night. I was testing around. I was like, oh, this sounds a little funky. And then I just went back and I was like, check 1, 2, and it went like, and I just heard all of the processing apply. And I was like, and I was like, cool. I didn't have to do anything. And then there was a little, like, I had a fan on in my room and I was like, it was like when I would start talking, it would just go from like nothing to being really loud. And so it was gating me. Right. And so I just went in the settings and I smoothed it out a little bit. And I was like, wow, that sounds beautiful, And so, it just has like all of that flexibility. And we try to do it in a way that isn't like, we have the analogy of like a DSLR camera has, sure, you have ISO and aperture and frame rate, and you can just put on autofocus, and it will make a picture look good. And that was something.
This should be doing that now, by the way.
Oh,
I'm
right,
not on a Mackie. Clearly. Oh, well.
We'll never let that one go, man. We're just gonna, But, so that was like just the thing, is making something that, for the modern age. And like we were the brand that made the first compact, like 16 channel mixer and kind of reimagined what that console could be. And now we're like, okay, we weren't the first ones to make a dedicated podcasting mixer, but we were going to make as the mixer brand, we were like, we are going to make the best possible one we can make. And I feel like we set out, we achieved what we set out to do.
That's fantastic. Yeah, I'm really glad that you accomplished what you wanted to because, yeah, from what I'm hearing, it's a great unit.
Yes.
So, yeah, I mean, I have not tried it myself, but mostly because I kind of pass it off to someone else. So, not doing it myself, I probably have less use for something like that. But that's not to say that it isn't really important. And I know that there are a lot of people out there who are doing this all on their own. So, I'm really lucky over here, I have to say, because without Umberto, I would be completely
lost.
And
it helps to have a team behind you. And again, for me,
it does.
Wanting to pick up live streaming, and even with my understanding of, first, I'm a content person first, and the technical thing follows. Like, that's not my passion. But, I started, okay, like I said, I have this capture card. I won't name names, but I'm just trying to get that feed in there, and like, it just isn't working. And it's like, I was like, I just wonder how people who don't work in our industry make this happen. Right. Because it's frustrating, and it's like, it takes a lot of trial and error. And that's, again, like, why whatever we can do to help alleviate that is pretty nice, because not everyone wants to learn about all of that stuff. They just want to sit down and sound professional and have some peace of mind. And like, that's the nice thing. Right. And so, and that's not like to say anyone has to present any certain way. There are teenage kids with cell phones who have a larger audience than I will ever have. Right. So it's not, but for those who want, to go that route, it's available.
It totally is. Yeah. And we're seeing the rise of podcasts. They're getting incredibly prolific. They're everywhere.
Well, that's the end of this episode. Thanks for listening. And if you like what you heard, why not tell a friend about this podcast? It's available in all the usual locations. Until next time.